I suppose the best framework is the world temporarily -1. Meaning the framework mostly remains. America, it still has to do business with the world. You still need rare earths. You still need all sorts of things from the other countries. But, well, for the time being, you wish the rules were different and you're trying your best to change it. America has decided that they want to take a more narrow, bilateral, transactional view of international trade. Other countries still have a framework of the WTO, imperfect in many ways, but enabling quite extensive and quite free trade amongst them. And I think many countries want to preserve as much of that as possible. Liberation Day and international trade, I don't think comparative advantage is dead. America has decided that they want to take a more narrow, bilateral, transactional view of international trade. Other countries still have a framework of the WTO, imperfect in many ways, but enabling quite extensive and quite free trade amongst them. And I think many countries want to preserve as much of that as possible. We will have to see whether that's possible, because when you have one of the biggest economies in the world taking a radically different approach and really not just withdrawing from, but expressing its disapproval of the WTO system, that will have repercussions, and we will have to see how the eventual situation shakes out. But one thing I have learned in government is that you can fail to follow an economic principle, but you cannot repeal an economic law. Whether you follow it or not, the economic law exists. That's just the way the world works. That's just the way human societies work. And if you don't follow it, well, you may have your reasons, and you want to override it and do something different. But market forces, incentives for people to act in certain ways in their own interest, for countries to act in their own interest, are very powerful and very difficult to just chop off. You close here, it pops up somewhere else. You close there, it pops up somewhere else again. You think you've achieved an objective, something else happens and you're chasing your tail. So I think that we are certainly, from an economic point of view, worse off now than before the 2nd of April, globally. But it's yet to be seen how things will turn out.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, well, you said that comparative advantage is still on, but it is evolving. I think it's evolving. And what do you think, what is the new framework on the global economy? And what can we do in Singapore too?
I suppose the best framework is the world temporarily -1. Meaning the framework mostly remains. America, it still has to do business with the world. You still need rare earths. You still need all sorts of things from the other countries. But, well, for the time being, you wish the rules were different and you're trying your best to change it. Temporarily, meaning maybe at some point they can come back and participate again in a more open and constructive way. But that's the best possible scenario. It may or may not happen. Meanwhile, what can countries do? Well, you can make friends with like-minded partners within a region like ASEAN, within a broader area like the Regional Economic, RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or with economies which complement each other and have a broader range like the CPTPP. And I think we can also work together on the WTO framework, like-minded countries, how to make the WTO work without being paralyzed by consensus gridlock. which has been one of the big problems, whether or not the Americans are part of the party. And to be able to participate and have enough of a consensus of countries to say we move ahead. Not everybody is along, and some countries are not comfortable. Well, that's all right. The rest of us, let's move ahead. And we've got some progress on that in a few modest areas, and I hope that more of that can be done. We should try and make the multilateral framework less bad rather than write it off.
I think however much we like economic principles to apply and how much we worship economics actually, but we are limited by geopolitical constraints as always. So these are a reminder to us that that we have to work within the political constraints as well, not just focusing on economic efficiency. But this suggests that we need a lot of diversification, all right, in terms of diversifying out of our reliance to the usual sources like for the US and so on. There are lots of markets which are unexplored at this point in time, and I think this gives us an opportunity to look at all these markets.
We should do that. You should diversify within the region. You should diversify to fresh markets. Latin America, we have talked about, hasn't gone very far with us yet. The African continent is a very diverse continent. It's 50 plus countries, but some of them are promising. And we should explore all these new opportunities.
Precisely. So anyway, I mean, this impact of tariffs, could it be temporary, meaning that as long as Trump is in office, when he goes out...
No, I do not believe that. I do not believe that. It will not remain like this, but it will not go back to the status quo ante. In trade policy, in economic policy, once you make a move, you can't take it back. There are consequences. When you first put in the tariffs, everybody complains. The people who need steel say, why is the steel so expensive? The people who need chips, who make chips say, why can't I sell to China? Why can't I import my chips from Taiwan? Whatever. But once you have put in the tariffs, and once new players come who depend on the tariffs and need the tariff protection, and you say, I'm taking the tariffs away, we're going back to where we were, it's politically not possible. And all politically not possible because the businesses with vested interests will complain, politically not possible because then you'll be attacked and say, you know, your predecessor did this to protect us. Why are you unilaterally giving away a chip? You must bargain for something. Which is what happened when Biden took over from Trump number one. Trump 1 put in tariffs against China. Biden didn't take them away. In fact, he tightened the screws on China more. And when there was a debate between Trump and Kamala Harris last year during the campaign, Kamala says, you know, if Trump comes in so many tariffs, then the world will turn upside down. And Trump's answer was, well, in my first term, I put on tariffs on China. It's now 3.5 years into Biden. The tariffs are still there. How's that? There was no answer.
Well, anyways, I think Singapore is not so badly affected yet.
Well, the Chinese have a saying, 50步笑100步. The person who retreated 50 steps from the battle laughs at the person who retreated 100 steps, and you're worse off than me. But actually, we have a free trade agreement with the US. It's a zero. We have imports from the US, 0% tariff. Now the US has decided that Singapore has 10% tariffs like everybody else, and we console ourselves that that's the best rate, and we hope that we stay there. I suppose if you treat the world as the way it is, and ask, could it be worse? It could be worse, but is it better than we were before? I am more skeptical.